As a confidence coach in Calgary who works with businesses and individuals, I have seen that confidence looks different for everyone. In this podcast, we explore confidence through the eyes of our diverse community, redefining it one conversation at a time. Welcome to Confidence Redefined. I'm your host, Alyssa McMasters. Joining us today is April Hicke, the co-founder and chief growth officer at Toast, a leading tech talent partner dedicated to advancing gender diversity. April has played a transformative role in shaping the Calgary tech industry and leaving a lasting impact far beyond its borders. Beyond her professional success, she's a mother of two, embodying the philosophy of work hard and be nice to people. Today, we'll chat with April about resilience, entrepreneurship, and navigating the elusive balance between motherhood and business. Welcome, April. Hi, April. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Alyssa. How are you?
I am so great. I am so grateful that you joined me today to talk about confidence because in my mind, you are one of the most confident people that I know when it comes to many things, including business and being okay with the unknown, right? Getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's one of the reasons why I look up to you so dearly and why I thought you'd be such a great guest for this podcast. So when we talk about confidence, what comes up again for me when I think about you, I think about confidence in the unknown. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe a time that you were unknown of the outcome, but still did something anyways?
This is really funny that you say that. You've never told me that before. So thank you, friend. That's very nice. I think it's deeply rooted in my values. And so years ago, I did the Brene Brown's values exercise. I'm not sure if you've ever done it. Highly recommend to anyone. It is so tough to find what your two values are, your two core values that drive everything that you do. She's got a great worksheet on her website where you can go and it has a list of values. It takes forever to go through. There's some that are very easy to cross off, like patriotism. Nope, not me. But one of mine is hope. And I think that hope is everything I do is so deeply rooted in hope. And I think carrying that with me, I often say that I've even packed my whole family up and moved it into this house of hope, helps me have that confidence because I hang on to that hope. And I know hope and faith are very closely intertwined. And my husband and I last summer had a really great conversation around hope. And do you need negative things to be happening? Because I think sometimes people think if you have to have hope, it means that you're leaning into a tough situation or something difficult. But you're right. It's the unknown often that helps drive hope. And so I think a lot of things in my life that I've had to carry confidently. I've actually been through a lot of adversity, including, as a child, food insecurity or poverty or infertility. My husband and I went on a long 3-year journey, or, quitting my corporate job to start a company. I think I gave my husband a heart attack when I said I was going to do that. And I think, again, leaning into that core value of mine is what has enabled me to have the confidence to hang on to that hope.
Hope. That is such a beautiful word. And I think a lot of people don't equate all these beautiful words to confidence, right? Often when we think confidence, we think, assertive, right? Arrogant,
yes.
Egotistical. We think these very more masculine sounding words where maybe confidence could look like those beautiful feminine words like hope and faith. And that's very beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. Now I want to get into a little bit about your adversity because I think a lot of people think that if they face adversity and they're not as confident as they want to be at certain times, that they can never be confident, right? When they don't feel confident when they're younger, that one day, maybe I'll be confident, but probably not because I'm not confident right now. And you have so many different situations where you have faced so much adversity. So let's start from the beginning when you were a child. What did that look like for you? And how did you gain the confidence in yourself, knowing that you're going to be okay, even when you're facing that food insecurity?
That's such a tough one. I grew up truly feeling genuinely physically uncomfortable in my own skin, which I think a lot of us as girls and young women, especially in our pre-teen age, gosh, how many times have we looked back at photos of ourselves and it's oh God, yeah, that's definitely why I was uncomfortable in my own skin with my glasses and my braces. And I think that, after going through a couple hard things, that's where you build up that knowing that in the end, everything always works out okay. Whether it's what we planned for it to be or not, in the end, things always work out okay. And so I think trusting in that knowing is kind of what I've developed over the years. And that's what's given me that confidence, is just knowing that maybe the plan that I have is not the right plan for me. And that's going to be okay, because things always work out in the end, no matter what.
That's so beautiful. And when we talk about like things working out, when we're in it, it can feel so sticky, right? It can feel so yucky. And we feel like there's never ways getting out of it. Do you have any tips that you do when you're in like a situation that you feel really insecure, that you're like, I know this is going to work out, but it still feels gross right now? What do you do to get over that and overcome that?
I mean, I think we try so hard to move past it when we actually have to feel it, right? I cry a lot. I do. It's such a great release though. And I think we put so much emphasis on like, okay, how do we get past this? How do we move past this? When really the way to move past things, like quote unquote, would be to feel them and to lean into that discomfort. And I'm very well known for this. I will 100% lean into uncomfortable conversations. I have to, in order to move past. I find that if I don't sit in it, I build resentment, or I play out scenarios in my head. It drives my anxiety worse. And so I think, leaning into that discomfort is where we need to go, and really, truly feeling it. I don't know about you, but like, there's nothing better than a good cry. Ooh, there's nothing better.
Preach to the choir. And I think we forget that confidence has a mind-body relationship, right? And all of our emotions do, because we are a whole human. We're not just our mind. We're not just our body. We're not just our soul. We're everything. So when we have this feeling of insecurity, or we feel not confident in any situation and it feels kind of yucky or sticky, we forget that it's a whole being of us, and we try to push it away, right? Because that's what feels comfortable. But what if being uncomfortable is the way towards resilience? What if feeling uncomfortable is the way towards that next step that feels just a little bit more authentic to us? So what does resilience look like for you? Because I know from your experience and going through that adversity, it has to make you resilient. And watching you now as the woman you are in front of me, you are wildly resilient. So what is that kind of that turn, that light switch between, feeling insecure and then finding that resilience?
I don't know if there's like a real answer for that. As you were speaking, my mind was immediately going to, for some reason, comparison, because I think we often think that we're alone in a lot of the things that we're going through. And when we're facing adversity or going through tough situations, I think that we've seen there's a lot of power in simply saying me too. And so I like leaning in and having conversations, calling someone like I've called you before, being like, hey, I'm facing this really tough thing right now. It's making me feel really insecure. And you and I had a great conversation even at the beginning of me launching my company about sales, remember? Where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel really insecure. I see other people winning at this thing. I'm not sure how to do it. And I think when we share a problem, we cut it in half. And so I am a really big believer in helping build up my resilience, is like getting that village of people behind me who I know will support me and carrying me through it. I think also knowing that we're not alone in this. Everyone's going through really tough stuff, and everyone has been through really hard problems. We're not that special. We're not unique as much as people think that we are. Everyone else is going through stuff as well, So I myself get a lot from sharing it with my friends.
Yeah. And when we are vulnerable, we cut that shame in half.
Yes.
I want to sit with that a little bit, that vulnerability. And a dear friend of both of ours, Roselle, who is a fantastic woman, said something that stood out to me. That was, you can only feel vulnerable when you feel safe.
Yes.
Right? Which is a piece that we're sometimes missing, that we can only be as vulnerable as we feel safe with the people that we're with. So how do you think you find that safe space when you're going through that adversity? How do you find those people that are safe so that you can be vulnerable?
I think that's something that you have to focus on intentionally every day. And immediately I'm thinking about work, because psychological safety is a gift. And we know, so Google, I think it was in 2015, Google did a research project called Project Aristotle. Not sure if you've ever looked into it before. Really cool research. What they were looking to find were what were the key components of a high performing team. And they found the number one key component psychological safety, where people felt that they could make a mistake at work and they wouldn't be shamed for it, or where they felt that, you know, they had that psychological safety. And back in 2015, it was not a topic of conversation, psychological safety, specifically in the workplace. And so a lot of workplaces, Google included, worked really hard to create and foster that. And learning that through reading Project Aristotle, it changed who I was as a leader and the way that I wanted to create teams. As that like siphoned into my personal life, I found that I needed to create that intentionally in my personal life as well. So I think one of my greatest skill sets is I'm a connector. I'm really good at building relationships. And so I try in my everyday life to position those people around me so I have those safe spaces already that I feel that I can go to. So whenever I meet people, I am automatically trying to disarm myself when I walk in. And I usually try and open conversations quite vulnerably so that I can create those safe spaces in the relationships that I have, that when I have those tough times, because they're never going to stop. I think I scared a bunch of students. I was a keynote speaker at a university conference in March this year, and someone was like, what advice would you give to a student? And I was like, adversity is never going to stop. You're going to keep facing hard stuff. You need to develop a toolkit. And they were all like, oh, okay. It was not bright and shiny, but I said, you need to work on developing a toolkit because the is not going to stop.
Sorry. Yeah. No, you're good. Well, let's get into that a little bit. Let's get into the adversity and knowing that it's not going to stop. And we talked a little bit about work, and you are just such a shining light and such like you said, a connector and a person who is really making real change here in Canada with your beautiful company Toast, which helps women get into tech roles and women increase their roles in tech. Tell me a little bit more about when we're talking about the adversity that you faced in order to get to the point where you're like, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to help other women who are in the same space as me, and I'm going to make a difference through my knowledge and what I'm good at. So what did that look like for you? What was that adversity that you kind of went to? What was that switch, that thing that happened that you're like, okay, this is it?
It's funny, you said it, you just named my second value, which is making a difference.
Beautiful.
Hope and making a difference, my two values. And I know that if I'm living into my values, I have those kind of feeding through every part of my life. And work for a while definitely felt misaligned. I've always been throughout my career the face of change, which I've always liked. Public enemy number one, sometimes working in large organizations and pushing digital transformations or change that, change is scary. Lots of people think they're going to be out of a job whenever there's change happening. So that was always really interesting. And as I climbed the corporate ladder, I often refer to myself as a recovering corporate ladder climber. I was feeling more and more misaligned. I think that the inflection point for me was after having my second mat leave. I had my son in 2020. So in the middle of COVID, I found out I was pregnant after a 3-year-long infertility journey, and we were very fearful. We had already experienced loss throughout our journey, and really wanted to have a healthy, happy baby in a very unknown situation, especially early 2020. So I found out I was pregnant in February, and then the world shut down, of course, in March. And with a husband who travels for work, and planes were grounded, everything was very scary at that time. Henry was born in October, and planes were still on the ground. My husband is a pilot, for some context there. It made more financial sense for our family for me to go back to work early, since my husband's industry, there were so many unknowns. So I only took 5.5 months off work. Do not recommend to anyone, by the way. And in my return to work, I really found that the systems that we live and work in are not built for women, and they are not built for moms. Something we already know. We live in the patriarchy. Barbie movie came out this year. We all know this. But it was becoming more and more evident. So there was one particular situation where I was late for a daily 15-minute stand-up with my team because Henry's feed schedule was off. I was still attempting to breastfeed while working full-time, trying to balance it with client calls. And I had a lead who told me that I needed to get my priorities straight. In that moment, I was like, oh gosh, I'm in this new job. I had just gotten a promotion. I need to put food on my family's table. They're right. And I actually started supplementing with formula, which in hindsight, it still makes me really sad to think that I had let that comment get to me. Because at the end of the day, I did have my priorities straight. Feeding my baby was the right priority. I left that job and moved to a different company shortly after that situation, thinking that this would solve that. I got to my next role. Again, very male-dominated industry, company, sitting at a table with a lot of male leaders. And it dawned on me again that these systems are not built for women. I think I gave my husband a heart attack whenever I came home and said, I'm gonna quit my job. I am gonna walk away from this job. And he was like, today? Like, you're gonna do that today? I said, yeah, I think today I want to do something different. And at the same time, my co-founder and I had a lot of conversations around how do we ensure that places are safe for women to work? Because as you and I both know, not every place is safe for women. How do we create community for women so that they have these safe spaces, again, to talk openly without fear of judgment or without, the person who actually controls your money or what you get paid being in that room with you? And also, how do we help companies increase gender diversity on their technical teams so that women representation is higher? Some really sad statistics in Canada. I mean, a great one being 67% of STEM degrees handed out in 2020 in Canada were handed to women. So snaps to that. However, depending on what province you're in, we only represent between 11 and 22% of the industry. So women are getting these degrees and then they're leaving the industry. And Marissa and I have faced firsthand why people leave. So we went out very bravely on a limb. I said, you know what? I'm not going to look for another job. I'm going to go all in and we're going to build Toast. We decided that if we had about 600 women signed up for a wait list by the end of the year last year, it would be market validation enough that we could go live with this. We finished the year with 2,000 names on on the sign up list. It went live in January.
Beautiful. And the rest is history. And if you are interested, I encourage you to look at Toast, either to become a member or even to see what Toast is doing to make a change. I want to go a little bit deeper into when we're talking about making a change being your other value, right?
Making a difference.
Making a difference. What I find so fascinating is that our community of women is starting to be more vulnerable and talking about things like, let's go back, infertility, like loss. And that's how we are able to actually make a difference, by sharing our stories, by showing people that they're not alone. Right? Because when we're not alone in spaces, then we can actually make real change, and then we can feel safe, right? So I just love that Toast and you as a human, as a holistic person, is just being so vulnerable about all your different situations. Do you also feel like vulnerability increases your confidence?
Yeah. I think so. I think when we really lean into our stories as well and own our stories, it removes that shame, as you mentioned, right? And being vulnerable for a long time, honestly, Alyssa, I never spoke about my upbringing. I was very shameful of the fact that I never finished high school, or I didn't feel like I belonged because I didn't have an undergrad, for example, in the same sense that people that I worked alongside did. And so I wasn't able to confidently stand in my story because I actually had never really shared it with other people. It took me a long time to lean in to my story and share it, and a lot of therapy. Thank God for my psychologist. Shout out to Ajitha. It took me a long time, honestly, to lean into it. And I think me being vulnerable and slowly but surely finding the safe spaces that were the right ones for me to start talking about it got me to that place where I was confident enough to sit on a show like this and own that story, because I think that we are given baggage so we can show other people how it can be unpacked.
Say that again.
We are sometimes given baggage so we can show other people how it can be unpacked.
Yeah. And I have so many people that I work with, both clients and people in the community, that when they have these situations, they think that they're not good enough, right? And this imposter syndrome comes up. And when I often do workshops, right? I often do workshops where I'll ask people different questions about imposter syndrome, and everyone raises their hand. And I ask, if everyone in here is an imposter, if everybody in this world is an imposter, then imposter can't be a real thing, right? Right. So when we raise our hands about imposter, but when we have these situations where we we don't feel like our best selves, when things happen to us that are maybe out of our control, right? We don't feel in control. We feel like we are not good enough. We feel like society doesn't want us, that we are not valued, that we are not worthy of all the love and respect, right? But maybe once we are vulnerable and once we're able to share that in a very safe space where we see that we are not alone and there's people in the same spaces as us who are going through the same thing way more than we could ever imagine, we realize that maybe that's not so sticky. Maybe it's not so heavy. Maybe we can just release that just a little bit, just to 10% each day. Right? Maybe we can just release that slowly. And maybe we can get to a point where we get so vulnerable and we feel so safe that we quit our job and start a company that has 2,000 people sign up in the first, even before it launches.
Yeah.
And let's also talk about is now featured in Forbes as of last week. Yes. So I want to get a little bit deeper into confidence when it comes to Toast and the things that you've seen and the stories that you've seen of how women have become more vulnerable, more resilient, and stepping into their own power in the world of tech.
I mean, I'm sorry to laugh when you said imposter syndrome because I just, honestly, I hate that term because we talk about it so much when it comes to women, but men never talk about it. And let me tell you, my husband's faced that. But for some reason, there's no tag or label when men feel that same way, which just drives me nuts. But I did see a video, which I will send you after this. There's some TikTok online, and like the boomer I am, I consume TikTok videos on either Facebook or Instagram because I don't actually have TikTok.
And are you like me where you say like, I read an article or people are saying when in reality I watch a TikTok and like, I'm not going to I'm going to maybe fact check it, but probably not. Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But there's one where the guy's like, if I'm actually an imposter and I've really fooled all these people, including Forbes magazine, into thinking that I'm actually somewhat successful, then really I'm the greatest villain of all time. Like I am in my villain era. If I've actually fooled everyone into thinking this, imposter syndrome just makes me shake my head because I don't know. Everyone feels like they don't belong.
Everyone feels like they don't belong.
Everyone feels like they don't belong. I speak to CEOs, I speak to some very high level people and everyone feels this.
And something that I am continued to say, I'm actually a coach for Toast, and I do confidence coaching for Toast. And what I hear in almost every session is, I just don't know when my team is going to figure out that I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, me too.
But no one knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing.
And maybe that's okay. This is our first time ever in this life. This is our first time ever living in this body, living in this world, living with all of our different intersectionalities. Maybe we don't need to have it all together. But when I say maybe, I say we don't need to.
No, we don't.
Maybe we can just be a little bit, again, kinder. And like you said about the person you were chatting with, there's two sides to every coin, right? The one side says, well, maybe I'm not good enough. The other side says, if I have really fooled everybody into thinking that I'm the best, maybe there's something to it. So when we talk about flipping the coin, does that resonate with you? Being able to flip the coin on different situations and see maybe the other side?
Yeah, I try often. I really struggle, which I'm sure lots of people do. I don't see myself the same way other people do. And I know you and I have had these conversations.
Yeah, we never do.
Personally. I never do. I never see myself. So when people come up to me and tell me that I'm inspirational or, I think it's fantastic because it drives in that what I'm doing is making a difference. And I'm so happy that if anything we've ever said or done or set up at Toast has had any sort of an impact, that's how I measure success now. I really struggled in starting my own company thinking, what is success going to look like? Is it going to be when we have a $10 million exit? Is it going to be when we grow the team? Is it going to be when we hit 5,000 members? What is the measure for me of success? And for me, it's ensuring that and because of who I am, I want to have an impact every day. So it's why I still show up to the smaller member meetups, or why I still show up when we have a SATE talk with only 15 students or something, because I want to sit in front of those women and I want to hear the impact that Toast is having in their lives. And for me, that's such a big piece of what I do. So it's so funny that you say that I appear so confident because I asked Marissa the other day, I'm like, do you feel successful now? We're in Forbes magazine. Do you know anyone else in Forbes? I don't know anyone else who's ever been in Forbes. Do you feel successful? And she's like, well, I have my days. And I'm like, when would we ever feel that way anyways? So we just need to lean into it, know that we're having that impact, knowing what my values are, help me be more confident in my everyday, because I know if I'm having any sort of an impact, I've had a really good day and I am successful.
Yeah. And I love that you really set aside what success means to you. And instead of figuring out, well, success means when I'm happy, right?
Well, or like titles and stuff. Like
Exactly.
I spent a lot of time chasing titles. I want to make sure I'm a director before this age, or for a while I wanted to make partner at the company I was at. I'm like, okay, if I make partner before I'm 40, then I will know at that point I'm successful. Or even before we bought our home, it's like, okay, I'll be successful when I buy this house. But there's this cute little meme that I always think of all the time. And it's like these two bugs and one of them's carrying a jar. And he's like, what do you got there? And he's like, oh, it's happiness. And he's like, oh, I've been looking for it everywhere. Where'd you find it? He's like, nowhere. I created it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the same with success. It's only what we measure in our own minds.
And what I see a lot of insecurities coming in from a lot of people that I work with is not having a defined idea of success.
Or comparison.
Or comparison of what success should be. Because should is the killer of pleasure. As soon as I hear should, I hear conditioning.
And comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly. And there was something, when I hear should, I hear, or comparison, I hear there was something that I should have been, or somebody else did it different than me. And maybe that should be the way that I work towards.
Nope.
But in reality, if we set our own desires of success and figure out what success actually looks like for us, that's when we can start working towards it. And we can say, okay, I have reached success. Now that goalpost might move, right? And that might be, that's completely
and
okay.
And that's okay too. Because I think comparison still is a bad one for me, and the shoulds, especially as a mom. The shoulds as a mom. I had a moment last winter where I was doing my MBA last year. I was building Toast. I was trying to get things off the ground. It was all consuming, especially doing my master's at the same time, which was just cuckoo bananas. And my sister came forward and was like, I baked all these cookies with my niece. And we went door to door and dropped these cookies off to my neighbors. And I was bawling to my husband. And I was like, I don't bake cookies with the kids. I'm like, do you think am I not giving them good enough memories? Should I be doing more of these things? Should I be like should I spend more time with them at the holidays? And my husband was like, April, if you weren't doing your master's and building a company, I bet you'd have the best cookies on the entire street. But it's okay. You're doing other things right now. And me comparing myself to my sister when we live completely different lives was not being fair or true to me. And so I think that, especially as a mom, as you know, these things are so hard to try and balance. The elusive balance does not exist. I'm going to be the first to say it. It does not exist to have any balance between work and home. It's never going to happen. You're going to have work-life integration, work-life flexibility, whatever it is. And we all talk about it. Sometimes I kill it at home and sometimes I kill it at work, but they're never going to happen at the same time. And so having that expectation that I should show up perfectly in both sides of my life is just going to set me up for failure.
Yes, and we talk about this so many times where we're expected to parent like we don't have a career, and we're supposed to have a career like we don't parent, right? But what I'm seeing now, and I think companies like Toast is really supporting this, that in order to be successful, we have to have all the diversity of thought, including the mothers and including the fathers who would typically stay home, right? Let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. And like you said, there's no way that we can have balance, and balance is elusive. Balance is not a thing that's real. No. We can have everything, but just not all at the same time. Is there anything that you do in particular that that helps decide what needs the most priority at that certain time?
Yeah, I think it's intentionality for me, and it was the number one lesson that I learned this year in building my company has been, working for a corporation, I have someone to force me to take vacation time. If I don't take it, I lose it. Also, it's part of my compensation package, so you best believe I'm going to take it. But when I own the company, there's no one there to tell me to take that time away or to walk away. And so at the Toast Summit, our dear friend Roselle, who's going to laugh that we keep quoting her in this podcast, she mentioned that self-care as we know it today is actually not true self-care. It's self-soothing. So if we look at, trying to deal with the daily everything of capitalism that we live in right now, spa days and baths and these massages or whatever. That is just self-soothing. That's not self-care. And true self-care for me and what I've recognized is boundaries. And so I know I can look far in advance in my calendar now. And actually I did it yesterday. March is going to be absolutely insane. So February, I'm not traveling anywhere. Every weekend in February is going to be with my family because I know that in March we're going to Austin and New York and all of these things. And same thing, I think a perfect example is my brother got married last month. We had a lot of things going on going up to the wedding. And then this past week, I traveled. Next week, I'm traveling again. There's a lot coming up. And in between all of that, my husband and I had booked a 2-day trip to Nashville. And I was looking ahead in my calendar and I pulled him aside and I said, I actually don't think that sounds relaxing to me. I know that my nervous system is going to be very high from all of the work that is coming up, and like hopping on a plane to go on a 4-hour flight is not sexy or fun to me at all. I'm on planes all the time. I actually would much rather be at my cabin alone with my children, walking in the forest, putting my bare feet on the ground and being a little moss baby instead of like a boss baby.
A moss baby instead of a boss baby.
I would much rather do that. And so we pulled the plug on Nashville. We canceled our flights. We canceled our hotel. We canceled everything. And to me, that was self-care. And that was balance to me because that was what I knew I needed for my body. And so those days, instead of Nashville, when I woke up in my cabin and I read a book, and I completely understand the privilege in having another place to go and remove myself from the city. And I feel very, very fortunate to have that in my life. But that's what I needed to come up into this week so that my mental health was okay, to take care of all the things. I didn't know Forbes was coming out this week. There was nothing to prepare me for that. But I was able to do that because I'm attempting to find that work-life integration. Also, I had kids because like I really want to hang out with my kids. My kids are really cool. And so I want to ensure that I'm carving out that time to spend with them because they're super cool and I want to hang out with them too.
I love that. And I love your kids too. They are very fantastic.
They're so
They really are cool kids.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about boundaries, everybody has such different idea of boundaries, and that is what should be, right? Everybody's boundaries are so different.
Yes.
So one person's boundaries isn't the same as another's. But do you have any advice on how you feel that something is in heck yes or a heck no?
Yeah, I have 2 buckets,
okay,
essentially. And this, my wonderful mentor and fellow Toast coach, Melissa Lasanti, taught me this. First of all, if it's not a heck yes, then it's an automatic no for me right now because I have so little time, as do most of us. Anyone who's working and has kids has very little time. We all know this. I have 2 buckets. If it is not feeding like me, my soul, so that is time with my family, time with my friends, self-awareness, growth, quiet time, all of that is in my me bucket. And the other one is my business. If it is not growing my business or fostering my business, that's it. Those are my 2 priorities right now. My family and me and my business. That's it. Those are my 2 ones. And if it's anything in between, it's a no. It's a no.
Beautiful. And how do you think you develop this ability to be like, no, regardless of everybody else around you telling you what you should be, the boxes that you're supposed to fill, and maybe having that guilt of being both because you are so great at saying no and you're so great at figuring out what no means for you. Where did that come from?
From a lot of mistakes, of course. From a mental breakdown, from a big panic attack. Honestly, it came from me saying yes to too many things and becoming incredibly overwhelmed. Lots of things overwhelm me. I'm very neurodiverse as well. Lots of like sounds drive me nuts sometimes. If I'm in a room with too many people for too long, I get very overstimulated and I need to go somewhere quiet, which is why we had our stim lounge at the Toast Summit. But it was actually developed because I said yes too much and I was giving away pieces of myself when I didn't have it. And we have those silly quotes like you can't pour from an empty cup or whatever it is, but it is 100% true. And I know that the people who love me and truly care about me, no one's going to be offended if I can't carve out time. Everyone who knows me is going to know that I am there. I will make time when I can and is understanding of it. And I have lost friends along the way. I can like think of one deep friendship that I lost over the spring that was like a really hard loss because I had to draw a line in the sand, and not everyone's going to understand it, but the people that really love us and care about us are going to understand what our boundaries are. And I tell my friends, and they joke about it, but I'm like, if you want to get into my calendar, you need like 4 months notice. Like we gotta plan it far in advance. And I mean, we'll always make time for the things and the people we prioritize. But again, number one for me, it's gonna be my kids over anyone.
Yeah.
Any day.
Do you have any advice for people who are right now maybe working mothers who feel guilty about not being there as often? What's that piece of advice? Maybe either you have developed it or maybe you heard it that really helped you.
I really like a good way to stay connected with my friends without having to, break off pieces of myself. If I'm thinking of someone, I will literally pick up the phone and just send them a text and say, thinking of you. And then sometimes they'll reply and I won't. But I have at least sent that. I try and do that often just so people know when I'm thinking of them. I also will carve out, like, last Sunday was a great example. I was driving for a significant period of time and I set up a couple phone dates with some of my friends for that time. So I will intentionally try, but I also, I make it very clear what my boundaries are to my friends and to anyone that I can't create time with. Like, hey, I'm actually really overwhelmed right now. My family is going to be my priority. I am not making time. And same for all the people. And I think as you scale your career, people want to pick your brain, and you probably get this all the time. I want to have a coffee chat with you. And like, we can't have coffee chats with absolutely everyone. I do, like, one of my mentors told me to like share my schedule. So when people ask that, it's like, actually, I can't have a coffee chat, but I'm going to be at the Toast meetup on this day. I'm going to be at the summit on this day and this thing at this day. If I'd love to see you at any of those, if you'd let me know. And so I think being very clear about what my boundaries are has been a game changer for me.
Beautiful. And what I hear from you, like for this whole conversation, is values and boundaries may be the key to your confidence, right? And confidence is so different for every single person. And that's why I call this podcast Confidence Redefined, redefining what confidence means, because it means something so different from everybody else. Now, the people who are listening who are maybe in tech or maybe want to get into tech, what piece of advice do you have for them for boosting their confidence to be able to apply for that job?
I mean, that's a tough one. It's funny, everyone seems to think that roles in tech are so elusive or out of reach when really there are so many transferable skill sets from any other industry. And also right now, tech is almost industry agnostic as we look at some of the coolest transformations that I'm seeing right now are in non-tech industries like public sector or healthcare, or, like there's a lot of different things that you can lean into. So I actually recently had a conversation with a woman who was a clinician, a nurse, and is now transitioning into tech. But there are so many health tech companies coming up right now that there are a ton of roles for her. So I say, we often at Toast tell you to look at yourself like a digital product. I've got a product background. It is who I am. But what are your key features? What do other people say that you're really good at? Think about those things. If people say to me often that I'm really good at connecting or I'm really good at looking at things full picture, it's like, okay, so then I'm probably going to be okay in BD or sales or in building strategies. I think that there's a lot of that. I also highly recommend speaking with a coach, truly. And you are a coach, and so you'd be able to even add in more to that. But I think that sometimes even just speaking it out loud, we can solve our own problems and help understand the way that we want to go if we have someone else to bounce it off. You probably see a lot of that being a Toast coach, though.
I do. And what I see, the way I describe a coach, because I think a lot of people are kind of wondering what's the difference between a therapist, what's the difference between a coach. And what a coach does, from my perspective, is we help you guide the next steps, right? So now what, right? And we don't tell you what to do. We help you understand your why, right? We help you understand what the options are so that you can be empowered to make the best decision that you can. Yeah.
I like
so
that.
That's what coaching looks like to me. And when it comes to confidence coaching, it looks like empowering you to see your different options, try out a bunch of different things, fail at some things, realize that some things aren't the right fit, and being okay with that, not having to fit into a box, not having to be perfect, making mistakes, finding your values, setting your boundaries, and finding those ways with an actionable person to sit with, to hold you accountable, but to also be there for you when you feel yucky, when you feel like you're falling.
This is why when I look at what we've built in the Toast membership, and for anyone listening, Toast has two sides to it. We work with companies, so companies will flat out hire us as a recruitment firm, as a talent partner when they are looking to hire women on their teams, which is great. So we can help be incredibly impactful by placing women into jobs with companies that we trust. I also, and we're going to high five on this, I fired our first client this week because we do live into our values. And if a client is not a place that I can stand by and say it's a safe place for women to work, I am not going to work with them. Firing a client was really exciting, by the way. And then on the flip side of things, creating a community for women where you can upskill yourself and have these conversations. We have an in-house lawyer who can answer any employment-related questions. You have access to these coaches, which is so incredibly fantastic. And to me, I mean, there's so much more than just that. And you can go to tritoast.ca to look into the membership. But I think having that coach and someone to guide you is invaluable. Because we were never born with the tools to solve all of our problems. We're just not simply born with them.
And also we're not developed to do any of this alone, right? Yes. Like, where's our village? All of us ask, where's our village? Yeah. Our village has changed, and kind of now you have to find your village, and often you have to pay for your village, right? You have to pay for your village in terms of your cleaner, in terms of your nanny or your daycare, whatever that looks like. Our village just looks really different. That doesn't mean that we can't find our village.
Yep. Agreed. Yep. And I think networking is such a big piece of that and getting out there. We can get really stuck in our own heads. And I mean, if you've got a problem that you've been ruminating on for a while, good luck solving it on your own. You know what I mean? And getting deep. And I'm notorious for that. Actually, I'm really big into psychics and mediums, as you know, and leaning into anything of that sort. And my medium continuously reminds me that I need to trust my intuition more, because whenever I'm not trusting myself, I become this notorious pollster, and I'll walk around asking everyone else's opinion for things whenever I already know what the answer is and I'm not leaning into it. Sometimes you just need that one person to bounce things off, to say, hey, this is the way that I'm going. Should I trust my gut? And someone's like, yes, trust your gut.
Yeah. And it's the yes, but it's also when someone says no and it still feels good and you're like, thank you, but I'm going to do it anyways, right? And to me, confidence is that. Confidence is having those feelings of insecurity, but doing it anyways, and finding ways that make you feel safe to be able to do it. Now, I have a question for you around networking. You brought up networking. I have lots of clients who come to me and say, I need help with networking. I don't know how to sell myself. I don't know how to ask the right questions. Do you have any advice for maybe the introverts who are really afraid of networking?
Yeah, I mean, we always think of networking in person, but also LinkedIn is networking. Yeah. Right? And I think people forget that. You could totally be a little keyboard warrior and hide behind your computer and comment on people's LinkedIn things, and, you know, and also network that way. There's a lot of virtual stuff. And so whenever I have people who are scared of networking, I'm often like, are you just scared of being in person? Because I also understand that it gets very overwhelming. I love people. I am a very extroverted introvert. I love people. But they drain me, and I need copious amounts of alone time in order to go back and be public facing again. And so I completely understand that. However, I am a big fan of building relationships and building my network online too. And so that would be my number one piece of advice. Ensure your personal brand online reflects who you are in person as well. And so I am well known for my quick wit. Humbly, I will still do the same thing on LinkedIn. I will make funny comments, or I will, side message people and say, hey, I saw that you posted this thing this week. It was really, really good. Let me know if you ever want to do a virtual coffee chat. And I actually got a couple clients that way by reaching out to people. That is a big one. Also, finding that safe space. And I know it's hard to find. I know it's not easy to identify which spaces are safe. But if you look at pictures of a networking thing, and I'm going to use Toast again. If you look at a picture on Instagram of a Toast member meetup and you're like, wow, those people look like me. I can see myself in those people. Get that courage. Bring a friend with you. Bring a buddy and go to that event and go there and break the ice. Because once you do it once, you're fine. It's okay to do it. It's got to be leaning into that discomfort, because we all know that definition of insanity. You're sitting at home doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same results. So you have to lean into something different.
And doing it even though it's scary, because everybody in that room feels scared. And once we can recognize that, and once we can really realize that everybody's in the same boat as us, nobody's better or worse, regardless of title, regardless of anything, because we are of value, regardless of our title, regardless of what we do.
And every event probably has an April and an Alyssa at it. The person
Yes.
who's going to walk up and be like, welcome.
Yeah, we got you.
I'm so happy
We got
you're
you.
here.
If you're the introvert, we got you. Just walk out to us, make eye contact. We can see it.
But we see those
it.
people come in, and I mean, as the company owner, of course I'm going to walk up, and I introduce myself, and there's probably someone who's arranged that meetup, and if you go in doe-eyed, looking a little scared, there's probably an April or an Alyssa there.
I love that. And something you also touched on, again, being the online, is finding like what makes you unique, like your own selling proposition, right? Because what makes you unique is also what sets you apart.
Yes.
So what makes you unique is that you're quick and witty, and you can send like a funny message and somebody looks at it and goes, okay, I'll meet up with this person because that's kind of funny. Love it, right? And if you are very intelligent and you think more strategically, focus on that and lean into the strategicness of yourself instead of trying to be like everybody else, right?
Gosh.
Not everybody is extroverted, not everybody's introverted, and we all have our own unique abilities and our unique selling propositions. And you and I have also had lots of conversations about sales. Sales doesn't need to be cold calling.
Cold calling.
It's not cold calling, and it's not being, all over somebody. It's not following up 20 times and annoying somebody. Maybe sales, and this is not even maybe, this is what sales is to me. It's the ability to connect people to the right product, to the right solution, right?
And it's
asking
listening.
questions and listening.
It's listening.
Exactly.
Nobody actually, I just gotta say it, nobody actually cares about your life.
No one gives a crap about you except for the people that give a crap about you.
No one actually cares. And so I think for me, the biggest part of sales is really listening at the end of the day and not talking and sitting there. You're right. Asking the right questions, understanding the problems that people have, and building that relationship. And so that they know that you actually care.
And once we can get it to a point where we can active listen, so that instead of thinking about what we're going to say next, we can really think about how we can connect with that person, really understand where they're coming from. That's when we can connect with people. That's when we can understand our own boundaries. That's when we can step into our own personal better self, is when we can actually sit down and ask those questions. Because I know a lot of people struggle with, myself included, until I did a lot of work and a lot of learning in talking and just thinking about the next thing that I'm going to say, right? In order to make myself look good. But what if we change the narrative to, I just want to listen, I want to hear, and I want to really hear, so that I can find those nuggets in there that make us connect, that make it really exciting to talk to you.
Do you ever notice too, I don't know if you've ever been in a meeting room, but when I was younger and earlier in my career, I was always in awe of the people who were in meetings and they'd be like, do you have anything to add? And they'd be like, nope. And they were always like intently listening in the corner. They always came across to me as the most intelligent, like emotionally intelligent and like just intelligent people. Because I think that listening is such an intensely hard skill set to develop, because we always do have things to say and always do have things to share. But I think not always having to say something is part of confidence as well, in knowing that, like, you know what, I know I can add things, but I don't always have to be the one in there adding things.
One of my favorite tips for external confidence, because to me, confidence comes internally, but this feels a little yucky, can feel a little scary, but what makes you look very confident externally is waiting 3 seconds when you ask a question, when you ask the hard question. Let's say example, okay, I would like to ask for $120,000 a year. And even though inside you're literally screaming, right? Maybe that's 40K over what you used to be making. Inside you might be screaming, giving it those couple seconds to allow the person to respond instead of thinking about what you're going to say next, or saying, oh, maybe, or I don't know, maybe it's 90 and that's fine too. Sitting in that uncomfortability, and we go back to sitting in that uncomfortability, sitting in that place where it feels a little scary. That's where that growth happens.
I love leaning into discomfort. Love it. I hope
So
my kids get that too.
So I have a couple questions for you. We're going to kind of go into a little bit of a speed round.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That no is a full sentence.
Can you repeat that?
No is a full sentence.
Yeah. What's the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh God. There's been a lot, especially since starting to host. There has been a lot. I don't know that I could nail anything down.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's completely fair. There's lots of bad advice.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
And I mean, but that's even whenever you become a parent too. I think everyone's got their own opinions, and it's just really important to listen to everything everyone has to say. Take what you want and leave the rest. Easy.
Yeah. And when we think about being holistic people, of being able to be mothers, being able to be entrepreneurs, being able to be friends, being able to be jet setters, when we think of our holistic self, is there one word that describes April?
Oh God. I don't know. What do you say?
For April?
Yeah. Someone once called me a walking exclamation mark. I liked that one.
That's kind of beautiful.
I was like, that is definitely
I really like
me
that.
A little bit.
I honestly want to go back to your value, hope, right? Watching you, seeing that you coming out of adversity, watching you put hope in so many women in our community, watching you put hope in your friends around you, seeing what's possible for them, even though the adversity hits. I want to circle back and say hope.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe growth too. Yeah. I'm definitely always trying to learn and grow. That comes with a heightened level of self-awareness that I feel like I've gotten as a gift, in that I have sobriety. I'm almost 10 years sober, and a lot of years of therapy. But yeah, growth as well, I think.
I love that word too. The last question I have for you, what is the most important thing?
Integrity.
Integrity. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that dearly. Well, April, I cannot thank you enough for coming in today, for having this conversation, being so wildly vulnerable and helping our community so dearly. If anybody wants to try Toast, try toast.ca to check out being a woman in tech, getting that connections of those coaches, getting that connections of that beautiful job board. If you also are looking just to apply for a job, Toast has a great job board that works with a lot of different companies in Calgary that can support you and connect you
across
to the right
country.
roles. Yes, across the country, of
across
course.
the country.
Of course, across the whole country. And if you want to go to meetups, they have a lot of open meetups as well. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I love you dearly, and we will see you soon.
Right back at ya. Thanks, hon.
Disclaimer. This podcast is designed for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with relevant experts or professionals for personalized guidance.